We're going to get analysis on all of this with Nader Hashemi in Washington, D.C. He's an associate professor of Middle East politics at Georgetown University. Nader, good to speak to you. So this is the second strike by Iran on one of its neighbors in the last 2 days. What do you make of the timing of these events when there are so many concerns that the war in Gaza is having a regional effect and spreading?
So what I'm about to say is not to be taken as an endorsement of the policies of the Islamic Republic of Iran, which I'm very critical of. But I think from Tehran's perspective, they are responding to an uptake in attacks both on its territory and on its allies in the region. So there's really two fronts here. There's the, Lebanon-Israel front, where Israel has attacked Iranian targets and allies in Damascus, in southern Lebanon, and in Beirut in the last several weeks. And then there's, Iran's eastern front, where about 2 weeks ago, on January the 3rd, in the city of Kerman, there was a major explosion at the funeral of Iran's top general that was assassinated by the Americans a couple of years ago that killed about 100 people. So I think Iran is trying to send a message to its adversaries, both the United States and Israel on one hand, and ISIS or Daesh on the other hand, that it has capacity to strike back. It's not going to take these hits lying down. And it's trying to establish, I think, from Tehran's perspective, a certain amount of deterrence capacity against its adversaries.
Pakistan, though, says that it will respond to what it says of these unprovoked attacks. What do you expect that response to look like?
Well, I don't think Pakistan is going to go to war with Iran. There'll probably be intense diplomacy. In many ways, what we're seeing in terms of this crisis in Iran-Pakistan relations is not that different from what we've seen over the years after 9/11, when the United States would launch drone attacks on Pakistani soil, claiming that Pakistan has to control its own border because Pakistan is being used as a safe haven for militant groups to attack American troops back then in Afghanistan. So I think this can be resolved with diplomacy. It's going to obviously heighten tensions between the two countries. But I don't see things, evolving beyond that level of tension.
How are these tensions, though, going to impact the wider region? Because now it's not just Pakistan taking issue with Iran, it's also Iraq taking issue with Iran, even filing this complaint against Iran at the UN Security Council.
Correct. I don't think either of those countries, Pakistan or Iraq, both of them have weak states. They have other sort of national security issues that they're struggling with. I'm very glad that Iraq is actually taking the Islamic Republic of Iran to the UN Security Council, because Iran, since 2003, since the American invasion, has viewed Iraq as a vassal state, not really as an independent state where you have to respect its borders and its sovereignty. Iran can just sort of launch missiles and, dominate the politics of Iraq as it has for a very long time without having to worry about any consequences. So it's good to see that there's some pushback from the central Iraqi government. But again, the Iraqi government is weak. It's fractured. I don't think it has the capacity really to go and do anything more than it's already doing, which is really trying to embarrass Iran on the international stage by taking it to the Security Council and saying these types of attacks on Iraqi soil are a clear violation of international law.
Do you think Iran, though, is concerned by being taken to the UN Security Council? Of course, the resolutions made there are binding, but as we've seen in the past with several countries, most of them don't actually follow through with what happens at the UN Security Council and resolutions that are passed there.
Yeah, I think it's concerned because no country wants to be hauled before the UN Security Council and have its, political record criticized. I think it's hoping that Russia or China will veto any, motion that happens at the UN Security Council. So I think it's concerned, but I think much more foundationally and fundamentally, what we're seeing from Tehran's perspective is this perception that it's under assault from different sides, and it has to send a strong message that it has drone capacity, ballistic missile capacity to hit back at its enemies. There is a certain strategic logic here in these sort of back and forth attacks between adversaries. If you are the recipient of attacks and if you don't hit back, it sort of sends a message that these attacks can continue without any repercussions or consequences for your enemies. So I think Iran is trying to establish a certain deterrence capacity on both of its fronts, both in the West and in the East. And that, I think, explains these types of behaviors that we're seeing.
Nader Hashemi from Georgetown University, speaking to us from the U.S. Capitol. Really good to get your analysis. Thank you so much.